So, good morning, all. Good morning, ladies. Welcome to the Parsha Shiur, Chabad House Parsha Shiur, weekly Parsha. Parsha's Ki Sisa. And somebody once said, how do you cut the ocean? How do you cut an ocean?
Oh, with a chainsaw?
No, with a seesaw.
Oh,
And that's what I always remember from this week's Parsha, Ki Sisa. Right? So, yeah. So, so this Parsha, I think there's quite a lot of confusion about what happened when. And therefore, I just want to let's before we even go on to discuss the ins and outs and the detail of the depths of the Parsha, let's just try and understand what exactly happened when, because we've had various Parshas in the Torah that talk about the Mishkan. Yes, we've had the Ten Commandments, we've had civil laws, when we had all the laws about the building of the Mishkan, and now we have the golden calf. But what's going on and when and how? So to give you a basic idea, according to the general gist of what it looks like, the general gist of the chronology is as follows. We start off, of course, with the giving of the Torah, the Ten Commandments. Then we have the various laws that were given to the Jewish people, these civil laws that we were speaking about. But remember, these were being given to Moshe on Mount Sinai. While Moshe was up the mountain, he was also, they were given various other laws. Some say he was actually being given the laws of the Mishkan up on the mountain, but that's one opinion. But then we know that on the 40th day, on the last day, unfortunately, the Jews started messing around, being rather silly. They became temporarily insane, unfortunately, because of this golden calf nonsense. And you want to just pull in a bit? Right, so. And so on the 40th day, the tablets were broken, which is in our Parsha, and it's, like in the middle of our Parsha, smack in the middle. Then Moshe gets forgiveness, asks for the Jews' forgiveness. He stays up there 80 days, goes up the mountain 80 days, 80 nights, 2 times 40. Most people think it's 40. So altogether, there were 3. Altogether, Moshe spent 120 days up the mountain. He spent the first 40 days after the Ten Commandments. Then he came down, it's on the 17th of Tammuz, he broke the luchos because of the golden calf. Then he went up again. He went again to ask for proper forgiveness. And that took another 80 days. That was hard work. That was hard going. Eventually, he came down on, when did he come down? Ms. Safran will tell us. He came down the second time on Yom Kippur. Moshe came down the mountain on Yom Kippur. That was the day of final forgiveness. And then they started building the tabernacle, which we've been reading about for the last 2 parshas. So we're all a bit of a, do you understand? We're all back to front. There's no order going on. Here's the classic idea that there is no order in the Torah. Why is it all written like this? Why is it all written like this? I don't really know. There are various commentaries, I'm sure, would explain why we're reading about. So, because, for example, right in the beginning of the parsha, we're talking about the machzis hashekel, the truma, the half shekel, which the commentaries say was basically an atonement for the golden calf, as was the building of the Mishkan, by the way. That was also, definitely out of sequence. We haven't read about the golden calf. So we're talking about the atonement. We're talking about the atonement for the golden calf before we read about the golden calf. It's a bit strange, right? But this is how it is. This is how it happens. Sometimes in the Torah, where we don't we don't really understand sometimes why the chronology. It's not necessary. I mean, there is sometimes a basic chronology, but once we get to the book of Shemos, and once we from the giving of the Torah, the chronology is definitely not how should we say strict, and it's very loose. But at least I wanted to just clarify with you what the general chronology was. Right? So now, notwithstanding the fact that we know that the machzis hashekel, was a sort of an atonement for the golden calf. And, what exactly did this mean in atonement? I mean, if Hashem forgave the Jewish people, so he forgave the Jewish people. So what is the atonement necessary? Well, here we come on to the idea that, you see, when the Torah was given, a rather incredible thing happened in the world, a kind of a dramatic cosmic change in the world. And that was that the Jewish people reverted to, we reverted to how we were before the sin of Adam and Eve. Became the zuhama, is posca zuhomoso. The dirt associated, the filth associated with the sin, Hashem had taken that away. Hashem took that away at Mount Sinai. So there was no longer death in the world. The decree of death had actually been taken away. So the Jewish people were like immortal, and they'd returned to the situation as it was before the. When did it come back? I'll give you one guess.
The golden calf.
That's right.
It was how much space? It wasn't very much.
40 days.
40 days, yeah.
40 days on the 40th day.
Back.
They almost made it. You almost made it to the end. It's not a short time. Yes, it's more than it's 49 days is 7 weeks. So it's 7 weeks between, right? So 40 days. Oh, so it's 6. Yeah, it's 40. Yeah, it's just nearly 5.5 weeks between over 5.5 weeks. So it is quite a long time. But that be that as it may, what happened was when the sin was done, then that whole suspension of the angel of death and of the spiritual, liberty that they had was unfortunately removed. So we went back to not square one. We went back to square two. Square one was when they were created immortal. That was square one, right? Square two was when they sinned with the sin of Adam and Eve. So that we went back to square two. It's like snakes and ladders. It's interesting, the snake, the snakes and ladders, the snake that goes down.
Yeah.
Yes, you could do it. Like, it's interesting. Jacob's ladder is the idea of going up, and the snakes bring you down. Yeah. Sorry, what were you going to say?
People died right after.
Oh, there were people dying as a result of the golden. Oh yes. Oh yes. Oh yes. There were several people, several thousand, 3,000 people, approximately 3,000 people were executed. 3,000 Jews. Now remember, the golden calf story was actually started up by the non-Jews who Moshe Rabbeinu took out from Egypt. How do we know this? Because when Hashem told them, "Hey, you with a beard, you know what's going on. You're downstairs. You know what's going on. I mean, you haven't been there for the last 40 days, but you know what's going on, don't you?" There's no what's going on. Well, that people, she says, Amcho, your people, who you took out of Egypt. So the commentary says, what do you mean your people? Well, you're not Hashem's people? She says, no, this was the people that Moshe himself. These people, they clamored, they want to come out, they want to join the Jews. We want to become part of your people. Yes. And Moshe thought, okay, sounds a good idea. Why not? You stop your stupid idol worship and you come and join the Jewish people. Of course, the problem is that their motives were very suspect and they weren't really doing it for good purposes. And the people caused trouble throughout the time in the desert, and it started with the golden calf. When Moshe didn't come down on the 40th day and they were confused, right? They made a botch up of just one day. So they said, oh, we're going to make you something that is like a god, like a replacement for Moshe, which some people, of course, took it more than just a replacement of Moshe. They took it as he was like a kind of god, right? But it was the Erev Rav, they call it, the mixed multitude of people that Moshe Rabbeinu himself had allowed to join the people that caused all the problems. Then Jews, unfortunately, got involved as well. So that's why Hashem says, Shiches Amcho, your people has been corrupted, they botched up, right? So so now what happened was, in addition to people being executed, people also died in a plague. There was a plague. If you read about it afterwards, you'll see there was a plague, and lots of people died in the plague. Hello, there were lots of people who died in a plague, which was very tragic. Now the plague, so there's so here, now look carefully. If you look, as I say, you've got to take my word for it. I want to sort of take time for that, but you'll see that many people died in a plague. The people who were executed, yes, the 3,000 who were executed, page 555 and 554, 555. The people who were executed were the ones who there were witnesses and warning to. You can only execute somebody in Judaism for a capital crime if you have witnesses and warning. 2 witnesses, 2 male witnesses, and they have to warn the person that if you do this sin, it's a capital offense.
But it doesn't really happen very often.
It doesn't happen very often. But at this time, they were all around, everybody was doing it. So there were plenty of people, and they did it. And those people, they did it knowingly, and they got executed.
Yeah, that's what I want
How?
to know.
With a sword.
No, because they didn't have guns, so I wanted
No,
to.
but they had swords. They swords. The decapitation. I don't know what it says. Each person, it says, took their sword. The tribe of Levi carried out summary execution. Yes.
Because there was no one else.
Well, yes. Yeah. Well, no, it's not true really, because most of the Jewish people were not worshipping the idols. They weren't worshipping, but only a few thousand people. Unfortunately, well, what is the percentage of 3,000 of 600,000? You work it out, 0.5%. Hello, so half of 1%, and that's what the whole Jewish people can't live down this problem all these years. No, because the problem is the Jews didn't stop them. And as somebody once said, in other words, the rest of the Jewish people did not stop the people worshipping idols, right? They just said, just leave them alone.
Well, this is also where I get confused, because it seems that Aaron was around the situation with the golden calf, and even though he did participate, he saw what was going on. But did he take like this?
Well, we haven't discussed Aaron yet.
Yeah.
We haven't discussed Aaron yet.
Proactive,
No, he didn't take a proactive.
Okay.
Aaron took it would not proactive but reactive.
Yeah, but he didn't.
Aaron took a reactive, and he had a certain strategy, basically trying to delay. Delay. I don't want to say like Trump, Lahavdil, because he also says delay. He got some good news to apparently. Of who? Aaron?
Oh.
No, of Trump?
Rabbi Trump.
And if I make fun of him, he makes fun of everybody else, so that people can't make it, yeah. But don't worry, he's got well, he doesn't really have a tough skin, does he? That's part of the problem. So no, Aaron was trying to delay. So, but he was still, because he was participating, he participated to the extent where he felt that if he is participating, well, there's 2 things. One is that he didn't want to be, if he would make an open protest, he would have been probably killed.
That's what I
by the Jews, because they'd already killed Hur, who was the son-in-law, I think, of Miriam. I can't remember exactly. Son of Miriam. So he was the son of Miriam. So they'd already killed him. He was supposed to be one of the people in charge, and they killed him. He were trying to stop them. So, but the rest of the Jewish people could have ganged up on these idiots because they were vastly outnumbered. Yes. So, but they didn't. So Aaron was like playing a delaying game. Okay. Yeah. Which, quite often doesn't work. So he is considered blameworthy to a degree, and he was blameworthy because he did tshuva, of course, but it wasn't because he was participating. He was just he looked like he was participating, and that's why he was trying to delay. Okay. Now, if you look in verse 2, we see that the idea of counting, it says like this, that this half shekel, yes, that we speak about right now, has a twofold purpose. One was an atonement, and the other was to allow a safe counting of the Jewish people, because you don't count people. Yes, we don't count heads. You count shekels. Then when you count the shekels, if you add up, if you've got, let's say, 1.2 million shekels, yes,
That's
half shekels,
a
sorry,
shekel.
half shekels,
Okay.
then how many Jews have you got? About 600,000. Do you understand? That's how you do it. You count through the shekels. But here the interesting is that there should not be a plague. The fact that it hints to in verse 12 that there was v'lo yeh behem neged, there shall not be a plague. You see, when we spoke about before that the suspension of the angel of death meant that the Jews were no longer subjected to the idea of death. But what happened after they sinned, it reverted, as we said, back to square two. And they are now susceptible to the angel of death, which, they came with a plague. At that time, it was a plague. So therefore, they needed something to atone for them in the sense that it wouldn't be like, a plague that is absolutely out of control and will just hit and kill anybody and everybody all the time. So therefore, the idea that Machzis HaShekel was an atonement, was a way of stopping and protecting against the plague of death that had returned to the Jewish people. You want to say, well, people die anyway. So what good is giving the half a shekel? I guess you might say that, but yes, but it still affords them a protection until, 120 years, so there is a certain protectiveness that perhaps would not exist if we didn't give that. Exactly. I think this was the point here, over here. So the plague, so this idea of Machzis HaShekel was the idea of protecting the Jewish people. And this is why, interestingly enough, you might know that the halakha says that the tribe of Levi, how many Levites here? Tribe of Levi also had to give half a shekel, which is very interesting. Apart from Mrs. Suffering, why is that so interesting? Well, I'm going to ask her the question, all the answers anyway. She could give the Shiur. I want to give somebody else a chance. Why was it so surprising that the tribe of Levi should also have to give a half a shekel?
Did they not participate in this?
They did not participate. They said very good. Because you live next door. Yeah, you live next door to her. Very good. So 100%. They did not participate. None of the tribe of Levi participated in the golden calf. So things that. So then why? So what do they have to give an atonement for? And the point is, of course, that although they didn't do the sin, unfortunately, the idea of a plague, yes, is it comes. What did COVID do? Did it just hit the righteous or the non-righteous? Did it hit just the naughty people, the people who went and right? No, unfortunately, it hit everybody all over the world, regardless. So everybody was affected, and the plague can affect anybody and everybody. The consequence, you see, of the act. Yes, once the genie's out of the bottle, once the virus is in the air, and it can go all over. I'm afraid it's, so everybody needs the protection, even those who weren't responsible, right? Everybody would need the vaccine. For those who like vaccines, and we won't discuss, whether you do or you don't. You don't need to nod or shake your head. It's okay. We're not in the Houses of Parliament here. And just the idea that the vaccine is seen as a sort of a protection, yes? So you might say that the Chetzi Shekel was a form of protection, a spiritual vaccine, yes, for a physical plague. Okay.
Actually, it's interesting because now we can make ourselves, we know more because of COVID. When you read things like from years ago for the plague, you don't really picture it, but now you can actually picture it.
Of course, because now they understand viruses, germs, bacteria, how they are born, how they are carried. Sorry?
No, that they don't. They couldn't stop.
No, they know the process. No, they understand the process of disease in the sense that it's usually airborne. It's in microscopic viruses or submicroscopic and germs, bacteria in the air and in the water. Right? That they know. I'm saying the process of disease. I think that's what she's saying. Plus, at the end of the day, of course, you're absolutely right. At the beginning, they didn't know anything about it. But after, several months, they learnt, and they figured out, how to treat it, how to deal with it.
They didn't know.
Yeah.
Well, a plague is a plague. Unfortunately, you had a plague afflicts everybody.
Their plagues didn't have, their plagues had to do with things that were quite external, though.
What do you mean their plague?
Like back then, when you think about all the plagues,
What do you
except
mean
for
external?
I don't know, like
Rabbi explained
frogs
this
and
It had to do with behavior.
yeah, it wasn't like a
Yeah.
disease.
No,
It
no, no,
was-
no, no, no. Yeah, no, but you understand that it is the spiritual source
Right, that brings on.
that brings on a physical
Yeah.
plague.
Yeah. Right.
Yes, it's not a spirit, like, for example, saras. Yes,
Yeah, that's-
saras, right? Which the Torah speaks about in Vayikra, which is the leprosy, which is not leprosy, but it's a skin. Yes, now that is a spiritual
Right. exactly.
condition, although it's a physical condition, but it's brought on by a spiritual cause.
But not contagious.
So yes, this is the same situation where you know look, everything that happens in this world is a result of some spiritual, exactly. So everything that happens, there was some spiritual, something failing, right? So, but I'm talking about the basis. I mean, as far as the Jewish people are concerned, we look at it this way. But it is a physical thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now, we if you look, if you look at verse 13, it says like this: "Zeyutnu kol ha'over al pekudim." This is what you should give everybody who is liable for the counting. In other words, usually people between 20 and 60 could go into the army. Matzis a shekel, half a shekel, right? So Rashi says on verse 13, Zeyitnu herelo kamin matbeya shel eish. He showed him a coin of fire. Mishkolo matzis a shekel, and that weighed half a shekel. Okay. Now, it's a little bit strange, really. I mean, we understand that sometimes Moshe Rabbeinu was shown things that he might not have understood. Yes, he, like the menorah, he couldn't quite get how is this the menorah is a very complex form of part of a keli in the Mikdash, and it was very complicated, all sorts of bits and bobs and parts, and yes.
There wasn't
So
extra fire in it.
yes, because ultimately
Yeah,
he couldn't figure it out. Even with being shown a picture, which it says he was at some point shown a picture on the mountain, some kind of a hologram, whatever. So, but also another case where there was he was shown because he didn't quite understand was the new moon.
Mhm.
Yes, the very first mitzvah is the new moon, right? Now, that's already was said in Parsha's bow. Now, what does it mean he was shown it? Because, well, how do you know when exactly is it big enough to say, well, now we've seen officially the new moon? So Hashem said, okay, look, I'm going to show you the new orb of the moon. And this is when you can sanctify. You have to be able to see at least this amount, a sliver of the moon. Okay? So, but what's the problem here? Half a shekel is half a shekel.
Yeah.
Why does he need to be shown this? And why do we say he was shown? Because it says zeh. And when you say zeh in Hebrew,
Yes.
it means this. But it's more than saying this. It's like you can point to it.
Yeah.
You point. I mean, I know it's rude to point, but when you point at things, yes, it's not rude. And you say, this is what it is. So to point to this coin. So he said, well, what is this point? The coin was, this coin was a coin of fire. That's interesting. It was a coin of fire. Interesting. The idea of coin and fire are actually two opposites. Because a coin is something physical, isn't it? You can touch, you can hold it, you can feel it. You can't, you can weigh it, aren't you? You can weigh a coin. You can measure it. Fire is the exact opposite. You can't really weigh it, you can't measure it. it's ethereal. You can't touch it even exactly. You could touch it with gloves maybe, but you have to have special gloves. But it's not normal. Not normally. You have special gloves exactly. So what is this all about? So the commentators have mentioned Sisa Rabbi mentions that the idea that the machtis hashekel, half shekel, also represents the idea of tzedakah in general, charity, giving tzedakah. Okay. Now, some people say, well, it's a very simple thing. Give tzedakah. Yeah. But you know what? There's actually that here, it teaches us what tzedakah is all about. That tzedakah has to have two parts to it. It has to have the coin, and it has to have the fire. So what's the fire? Let's start off with the fire. The fire is that when a person is doing tzedakah, and perhaps this goes for all mitzvahs really, because,
Oh, I'm thinking about intention. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. What is the intention when you're going to give tzedakah? You know what the intention is? The intention is the intention of like fire. It shouldn't have any measurement. It should be warm, enthusiastic, beyond any limitations. That's the idea behind when you give tzedakah. Yes? Now, of course, it has to have a coin. It has to have a limit. There's a limit. There's a half a coin. There's a measurement. Yeah? Tzedakah is not give all your money away and Bob's your uncle. No. There's a certain amount you're supposed to give. A certain amount. There's quite a good spectrum there between 10%, 20%. Yes? Sometimes you can even go beyond 20% if you feel you need it. Yes? Normally 20% is the maximum, but you can go beyond if you feel you need it. If perhaps, sometimes we spend money on doctors for rather unexpected things, and we spend kind of big. So spiritually, sometimes you can even go beyond. But there's a certain halachic limitations of tzedakah. So this is the idea in a sense that you can't go meshuggah when it comes to actually, you give poor person comes and he asks, guy comes from the door, can you help me out? You see he's a poor miskin, and you give him £1,000. Well, you're going to blow his mind. Might not be so good for the person to get so much. They might not be able to handle it. Sometimes you give too much, doesn't help the other person, blows their mind. They could go meshuggah, they could go crazy, do stupid things.
Yes.
Or the people who got or the people who won the lottery.
Yeah.
How many terrible stories and tragedies and crises you hear? It's like insane. The people you'd think these are the happiest people on earth, and you read some of the stories of what happened to these people and the terrible tragedies that befell them after this winning the lottery. I see quite a lot of nodding heads because it's not just something I've read. It's kind of been well publicized. The irony, that somebody has so much money, they don't know what to do with it.
It's better to work for it.
Well,
And have a little extra. Yes.
Well, they say, if you have too much money, it makes you meshuggah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's Anyway, so therefore, again, the idea of tzedakah has to be measured, but the spirit behind it has to be unmeasured. If you understand, that has to be warm, enthusiastic, and without bounds. It's a bit of a not so easy thing to do, but one can work on it. As I say, sometimes people do things in a bit of a, we say, oh, he does it in a bit of a cold way. He does it. But somebody's take the money, really get lost. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, patronizing and grudging. They tell the story of a parent who was sitting eating the meal his son had prepared him. And it was a fantastic meal. And the father was saying, wow, this is amazing. This must have cost you a fortune. So the son said, Dad, just shut up and eat.
No.
So because, you see, he was a little bit upset that it cost a lot of money. He's doing the mitzvah. Okay, I'm doing the mitzvah, honoring your parents, giving tzedakah and all that stuff, right? But he wasn't happy about it. And he lost it, really. He lost that. You talk like that to your parent, you've just lost it. You've lost the plot. You think you're doing the mitzvah because it has to be done with. It has to be done with a. It has to be done with a heart. It has to be with a kavanah. It has to be done with warmth and enthusiasm. Yeah.
Everybody
This-
has to.
No, not in this. That's the whole point. The fire has no limits. That's the whole point. No, is it? We said it's not about how much. How much there are limits. How much there are limits. You understand? Do you understand the difference?
No.
But how you give it, you can give it with so much enthusiasm that there's no limit to enthusiasm. I just give you one example. I'll tell you a story and then you can come back if you disagree. There was a famous chassid called, I think his name was Chen, in the times of the Alter Rebbe. And I think he has still this descendants still living. And one of them is a shliach in Manchester, Peretz Chen. His name, in fact, might have been Peretz Chen. Anyway, this chap, so the Alter Rebbe used to come around asking for money from time to time. He went around collecting, he was collecting for the poor people in Israel. Or poor Chassidim, they went to live in Israel. They didn't have any money. Israel, there was nothing there. It was Ottoman Empire. It was just desert. The whole place was desert with a few towns, Acre, Jerusalem, Haifa, it was a deserted desert. And so he came to this chassid and he asked for a certain amount of money. Well, for them it was quite a big sum of money, but you know what? They decided they got the money. So he stayed the night. And the next time he said he's off to go. He's off to leave. So they come to give him the money, give him a whole bag. Here's the bag full of the coins. What happens? He opened up the coins. He said in this bag, he poured out some of the coins. The coins were shining. They were shining. Now, I don't know what kind of coins they were. I don't know if they were copper coins or silver coins. Maybe they were silver and that's why they were shining. But what had happened? The wife, who, when she heard that this is what they were asked to give, yes, didn't just give the money. All right, get the money. Go to the safe. Get the money out. Give it to the rabbi. The rabbi wants it. Or even do it in a more enthusiastic way. How enthusiastic? She spent the whole night polishing the coins. Polishing the coins. Is that necessary? Certainly not necessary. But the Alter Rebbe was so blown away. Rabbi Schneur was so blown away with this gesture that we're not just going to give regular coins. I want to give coins that shine. Because I'm showing my enthusiasm. It's the same amount. I mean, 100 pounds, 100 coins, whether it's a bit dirty, a bit tarnished. Yeah, it's the same 100 quid. I mean, you can go to the bank. That's it. You're going to send it, you're going to wire it. I don't know how they sent it to Israel. But whatever it is, the same 100 quid for crying out loud. And yet he said he was so blown away by the beautiful gesture of shining these coins. Showed she cared. It wasn't just the amount she's giving. It's the same amount. Person. He said he wanted to give, the Alter Rebbe wanted to give him a bracha at the time. And he asked, and he gave him a bracha for long life. Right? He was so blown away. And this family, they were, I don't know, lived to the 90s or something, or late 80s, which in those days was pretty phenomenal. And that whole family, like for generations, they all did long lives, right? As a result of that bracha. So this is why I was saying that the enthusiasm doesn't need limits. There's no limits to enthusiasm. There's a limit to how much you may give. That's the halacha. The halacha says 10%, 15%, 20%. Do you understand? Enthusiasm, sorry?
Limitless.
It is limitless. Limitless enthusiasm, exactly. So, we have to work on it. Sometimes we're not very enthusiastic. Well, we have to work on it. We work to be more enthusiastic, right? We don't want to be, it's not about being cold. They tell a story about a king. He had this bird. The bird was treating, it was one bird. The king loved the bird. So, one day, after 120 years, it dropped dead. Yeah, it was an ex-parrot. It was an ex-bird, right? I see. Okay.
I think that would be well.
Live and be well. Yes. And so the king was very sad and depressed. Oh, my singing bird. No longer very upset, depressed. So some bright spark said, oh, I got a great idea. So one day he comes and he brings to the king and he takes off the cover. He says, here's a cage and a bird. This artisan made a fantastic replica of the bird And it looked beautiful, like when it was in its younger years, the plumage, it was so beautiful colored, and everybody went, wow, and the king went, wow, everybody's, wow, Anyway, so after a day, they called to the king, calls his artisan, and he says, what have you done here? He says, what's the point of this? He says, but what do you mean, Your Majesty? I made this fantastic thing. He says, yes, but it's cold, it's dead, it's lifeless. It looks very nice, but it's not doing anything. So what do you want? Well, that's not supposed to make me feel better. Yeah. So this is it. So I think this is the idea, matbeh shel eish, that the coin and the fire we give away in stock should be done with enthusiasm.
I never had an example.
An example. Yes. What do you mean?
No, I understand what you're saying, but I just feel in real life, the son made the father the food. It was hard work, and he did it, and he wanted to give it to his father, but then the father kind of
Complimented him. He was, on the contrary, he was saying, wow, you spent so much money.
This must have been very expensive for him. Kind of.
Well, that's just a fact.
Door
Maybe it was patronizing. That's right.
No, that's just a fact.
I
No,
don't know.
I think, don't you think the son could have said, don't worry, Dad. Yeah, it was expensive, but
Yeah.
it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. You've done so much for me. You brought me into life. We're not blaming the parent. But the parent to say this is expensive, none of the commentaries say, oh, you're terrible, the father should say such a thing. No. The son lost it. He lost the mitzvah. Commentary says it was a terrible thing to say. There's no ifs, ands, or buts over it. This is not a maybe he didn't mean this. You don't need to be malambaskus when something is wrong. It's wrong. Call a spade a spade. It's wrong.
Because the father was kind of like minimizing it.
Mm.
This must have cost you a lot of money.
Why?
Instead of the law.
Instead of
Why? Why is minimizing?
This
Very
is
nice.
amazing.
Yeah, he didn't have to bring out the money. at that point.
I'm amazed.
What about the
I'm
effort?
amazed that you can't say that it's something depending on how it says it. How do you know how he said it?
Also,
You're interpreting a tone of the father. And what if the father said, wow, this is again malamaskus on the son. I'm not sure why we have to malamaskus on the son. Why? If he did something wrong, he did something wrong. What's the point in malamaskus on the son? If you do something wrong, own it. And that's what we say in Judaism. People do own things wrong. So if the father said, wow, this is amazing food. This is delicious. You must have spent a fortune here, right? So the father's allowed to say that. Why not? It's a fact. It's a fact. But he may not have been, he wasn't been criticizing, wasn't putting down. If anything. Anyway, let's.
And the first thing you do is asking, like, how much did this cost?
Yeah, exactly.
Wasn't asking.
You don't have to ask for this.
Wasn't asking.
What about an avocado? Mango.
Yeah.
You get slapped in the face.
Sometimes if you're enthusiastic.
For example, going off for someone to fill in, you're really excited, you're a Shiur and it's the first time out. You tell you just yes, would you like to fill in? Oh, leave me alone. And then
Oh, this happened on the way to Israel.
Yeah. And therefore.
So you still have to be enthusiastic, but
Well, there you go. You still have to be enthusiastic. Exactly. You still have to be enthusiastic. If you're going to go up to whatever you do, it says kol. What is it? What's the expression? Kol hanosim b'ayin yofen. Whoever gives, you're supposed to give with a good eye. That's all. Now, will the person take it in the right way? That's irrelevant, frankly. It's irrelevant how the other person takes it, because we're not talking about how he's taking it. Your job is to give. Of course, a person should take in a gracious way, but it's irrelevant. A parent has the right to say whatever he wants to say. The problem is nowadays, the whole idea of respect for parents has gone out the window altogether. And there's no such thing. It's like, why should we respect you? Why? We have no reason. If you speak this, if you do this for us, you do this for us, you do that, then maybe we'll think about it. We'll think about it. Huh? There was a time when people said, hey, you owe your existence to your parents. You do appreciate that. Well, so what? This. Sorry, I didn't ask you. Yeah, neither did your parents. You know that famous story. Yeah, there was somebody who took his parents to court in India. Yes, he said he has to pay all the bills. The parents should pay all the bills. They have to pay everything. They have to do everything. Why? So he presented a bill. I didn't ask to be born. You brought me into the world. Well, you take care of me then. You have to pay my bills for my whole life. Right?
He lost the case.
He lost the case. Why? Because the parents had a very good defense. We weren't asked if we were born either. Nobody asked us. Right? Okay. And nobody asked their parents. We don't get asked if we want to be born or not.
Or to have an ungrateful child.
Now, I know, although it does say in the Ten Commandments, about honoring one's parents, we're getting a little bit, again, a little bit off the track.
Yeah, I heard that you choose which parents.
Yes, this is all a nice spiritual stuff, but doesn't actually say that anywhere, does it? Choose your parents. This is some kind of a nice, maybe it's true, maybe it's not. Whatever. It doesn't really matter. Anyway, let's move. Let's move on a little bit. We're going to talk about the idea. How much time do we have? Not a lot of time. I'd like to share something with you, which I think is quite profound, really. Of course, we know the golden calf, the story of the golden calf, but we know all about it, that they sinned, right? And of course, let's try and find it inside so we can just look at it. Yes, that's fine. Okay. Well, the whole discussion, of course, on page 566 starts the discussion where Hashem says, go down, Moses, because the people have botched up, right? And Hashem says, leave me alone, I want to get. He says, I want to destroy the people. Okay, we're going to come back to that in a minute. Just 1 second. Trying to find the part. That's what I'm trying to get to that point. Yes, that's exactly what I'm trying to see exactly where it is. It's funny. The other day I lost this exactly where it is, and it's staring me in the face, right? Which is so interesting. Where does it say Mecheni no Mesifrako, Mrs. Safran? Can you find it?
I think that's the first two Aliyahs.
Okay, hold on 1 second, please, so I can get the exact passage that we're talking about. I'll get it for you 1 minute. 1 minute, there's a shame. Here we go. Oh, of course. Why didn't I remember? Chapter 32, verse 32. This is like the heart of the heart of the heart of the. So it's on page 570. No, yes, 570, 571. So I'm very moved by this thing I'm about to tell you now. If you look at chapter 32, see the heart, Lev, yes, and verse 32. What does Moshe say? He says something quite dramatic. He went up the mountain again, and he said to Hashem, "Oh boy, these people, they've sinned. They've sinned they've been very, very naughty." And then he says like this, "Va'atah." Yes, they made the golden calf terrible. He says, but then it's funny. It's like he's agreeing with Hashem. But then he says like this, now, if you forgive them, right? If you forgive them, then what is the then it's okay. Yes? If you forgive them, fine. If not, wipe me out from your book, right? Now, Asher Kasafta, which you wrote, right? And that's what we said in last week. If you remember, we said, why is Moshe's name not mentioned in the Parsha of Tetzaveh? It's because of this verse. Because he said, if you don't forgive them, wipe me out from your book. Now we know, of course, Hashem did forgive them.
You. And then he started this. Okay,
Ma-
yeah.
what-
No,
yeah, Moshe.
Parsha starts off with him being addressed in a different
You,
way. Yeah,
correct.
you.
Yeah, but his name is not
Yeah,
mentioned, right? His name is not mentioned. So the funny thing, of course, the question is, we said, well, if you don't forgive them, then you wipe me out. But Hashem did forgive them. But so we say that because a great tzaddik said something, that it has to be partially fulfilled anyway. And that's why we said the Parsha of Tetzaveh does not have his name in it. But now I'm going to share with you something else quite amazing. Let's look at this verse carefully. In the Hebrew, and I have to look at it from the Hebrew because it doesn't really work in English.
Mhm.
Or let me see in the English. I don't think it works very good, but let's 32. He says like this.
Now, if you forget their sin, then tell them.
Yes. Now, if you forgive their sin, yes, then well and good. Now, do you know this says that's in brackets? Yes? Can you see it says in brackets?
Mm.
Then well and good. You know why it's in brackets? Because it's not in the Hebrew.
Mhm.
Exactly. Rashi says and interprets this that if you forgive them, ... but for some reason, the words are not there. But what Rashi says is, well and good. Yeah. But if not, then erase me from the book of the Torah, right? Which you have written. The Torah is also in brackets, but really, we all know that it means the Torah. So, when you think about it, if you read it just straight, without any Rashi interpretation, yes? If you read it straight, I'm going to translate it for you as I read it. If you forgive them, if you forgive their sin, and if you don't, wipe me out of your book. So if you read it literally, it says, Moshe, what is Moshe saying? Whether you forgive them or not, wipe me out of your book. Now we put in the little bit where it says, if you forgive them, well and good. Got that in brackets. Why is it in brackets? Because, as Safran said, because it's not written. It's not written in the words. It's a bit strange. Something to have a conditional phrase. Somebody gave it a term in Shiur the other day in Latin. I don't know what he said. A conditional phrase. You didn't finish off, ... Right? And we put that in because Rashi explains. Okay, now we put in the translation. We know what it means. But on another level, forget that for a minute. Just read it. What does it say? If you forgive their sin, and if you don't forgive their sin, wipe me out of your book. So in other words, what Moshe was saying in a sense, I don't care what you do at this point. Forgive them, don't forgive them, wipe me out of the book. Now, what does that mean? What's going on here? What's going on here? Wipe me out of what? Even if you forgive them, that's the Kiddush. That Moshe is saying, wipe me out of the book, even if you forgive them. We learned last week, and that's the normal thing, that, if you don't forgive them, then take me out of the book, because I'm not interested. But the way we're reading it now is, even if you forgive them, take me out of your book. Well, how does that work? What's going on?
His whole existence was like the Shem Shemayim, like no,
Okay.
no anything.
And
from
therefore,
So it sounds like something he would say.
what? Even if you
Like
even if you forgive them,
total the Shem Shemayim,
he's saying if you forgive them. If you forgive them, you understand if he wants to be wiped out of the book, if Hashem doesn't forgive them.
I don't need it.
But why would you say he wants to be his name wiped out of the book if he doesn't forgive?
He doesn't.
I mean, sorry, if he does forgive. No,
I mean, he was the advocate.
well, he was ashamed.
Hmm.
He may have been ashamed and embarrassed. He said, "Boy, these people did a terrible thing." But But what does that mean? Even if he's ashamed, embarrassed, he say, well, I don't care what you do. You can forgive them, don't forgive them. I don't care. Get me out of your book. That is the way you could read it literally. Whether you forgive them or not. That's the difficulty here. Do you understand? Do you understand the difficulty?
As a leader, we have to be personally responsible for our behavior, right? And when a leader, like in politics, if you're a director of a big company,
He was not in any way responsible
of course
because
not, but
he wasn't even there. He wasn't even there.
Yeah.
He was up the mountain. So he had absolutely nothing to do with it. So we can't hold him responsible. And Hashem didn't hold him responsible. But why is Moshe? Yeah, but so what? He's saying he's responsible for what? For the sin? But then,
there is sheep. There is, yeah.
right? Well, you're getting warm. You're getting warm to the answer the Rebbe gives.
Maybe he saw the sheep.
Fine, so the truth would be better. But why do you have to say, you know, if you forgive them, even if you forgive them, you can still take me out of the Torah. If you forgive them, that's the problem.
Take my name.
Take my name out of it. Well, my name means me.
Wait, the Torah.
Not doing it well.
He didn't
Yeah,
want
but
the
he's not
position-
going to kill Torah's Moshe anymore.
Position in the first place.
He didn't want the position in the first place, saying this is a convenient excuse. No, I'll tell you what the Rebbe says. The Rebbe says an amazing thing. Moshe, you see, let's again look at what did Hashem say? What did Hashem say? Go back to page 566 and verse 10. Look at verse 10 very carefully. Now leave me alone, Hashem says. Oh, I'm gonna get angry. Oh, I want to get angry. Right? This is a whole other discussion. What do you mean, leave me alone? Here, of course, he was hinting to Moshe, Moshe, you better not leave me alone.
Yeah.
You better do something now. You better say something. Yes. You better plead on their behalf, which he did. And they forgave, and Hashem forgave them. But at this point, he says, leave me alone. I'm going to get angry. Look at the next words. Ba'achalem, I will destroy them. Very strong words. Even stronger. I will make for you a new nation. A great nation. We're going to start again. We're going to start again with you, Moshe Rabbeinu. And that's when Moshe started pleading. And he won the day. And he saved the Jews. But here, the Rebbe suggests like this. The fact that Moshe, he was paying attention to what was Hashem saying. Hashem was saying like this, you know what, let's get rid of these Jews altogether. They're a bunch of problematic. Drive me bonkers, drive me crazy. Why don't we just start again with you? Those words, when he heard those words, Moshe was horrified. He was horrified. Because what was he saying? He perceived God to be saying that the reason why he could destroy the Jews, there was a reason. Because Moshe, you're so great, you're so wonderful, you are like the Jewish people yourself. We're going to start with the whole people from you again. Now, on the one hand, that is the best compliment anybody could get. On the other hand, Moshe was like, are you kidding? Are you kidding? The reason you're happy to destroy them or you want to destroy them is because of me. So you're saying, I am making it possible, my existence makes it possible for you to think that you could destroy the Jews? My people? Your people? Oh, no, sir. Oh, no, sir. That's why he says whether you forgive them or not. The very fact that there was a possibility that Moshe's existence could allow for God to think there could be a possibility of destroying the Jews knocked him for six. And he said, in a way, saying, I don't really want to be a part of this. That's how you read it here. Whether you forgive them or not, you understand? And that's why we say, okay, you know what? He was, in a way, taken out of the Torah, just as he wanted. In fact, it works better this way Because here we say that regardless, he did want to be taken out because he didn't even like the thought that he could substitute the Jews as it were, and therefore
It's
allowed.
like kind of also shown on the second week, like with the table and all that, like that you would never.
No, it was destroy the world.
Okay.
The
That's
table that he said
right,
the
right,
world.
right.
I'm not going to
we were
destroy
ju-
the
we were-
world
we were
again.
just talking about.
It was just about the Jews here.
So what Moshe
And you'll have a new Jewish people from Moshe.
So Moshe said happens before he said it. Like he was taken, his name was taken out of the book before he said it, like in chronology. And I'm just thinking.
Okay, that's a question. Why was it taken out of the
That's
Sedra before?
lesson for us too, because sometimes stuff happens to us and people are like, what have I done? And like, maybe you will do something. Now this is a warning, don't do it.
You mean just by saying something?
I wanted to say, I wasn't right this time, but it's for the times that I missed where you deserve. I wasn't right this time.
Retroactive. Retroactive.
This time, the times I didn't get.
That's so funny. Like
I
retroactive
think that's what you're
punishment.
saying. It's
Yes.
like,
Um,
you know,
I have heard. You know, so everybody says about, they say, why me? The expression, why me? Why it have to be? So somebody once said quite a wise, profound thing. Why not you?
Um,
If there's a why me, why not you? There's no, it's not about why.
Yeah.
Because it's not, why is a very dangerous word, dangerous question, right? And here, as I say, I think this is just shows you the greatness of Moshe, really. And this, I think only a Rebbe really could write this and could suggest this, because understanding the mind of Moshe Rabbeinu, that how could he say, whether, that even if you forgive the Jewish people, take me out of the book. Because he was so almost offended, that he was offended by the thought that he could serve as a substitute for the Jewish people. That bothered him immensely. That was his incredible humility. He didn't sort of say, oh, okay, I get the idea, because it's an incredible compliment, isn't it? But you see, his greatness was combined with his humility. So whereas 99.999% of us would be almost, how should we say, flattered by such an incredible compliment, that you represent the entire Jewish people. Here's the Jewish people here, and you're outside, your scales, you weigh down, and you're the same. You're the same. And it does say that, but it does say that in Book of Numbers, that Jewish people are Moshe, they're kind of equal. They're like two on the scale, they're equal, you see. So, on the one hand, you could say, whoa, that's pretty shucks, shucks. Little old me, yeah, little old you. We're going to start with you. And you can say, wow, thank you so much. That's very, I don't deserve this, Well, but Moshe Rabbeinu had the exact opposite reaction. He was so humble. He was saying, you what? You what? You must be joking. Remember I told this story about the tea with Label Groner, Rabbi Groner, when the Rebbe was giving Yechidus every Monday, Sunday night and Wednesday night, throughout the night, hours and hours and hours and hours, right? Hundreds of people. And he had a cold one time, and Rabbi Groner came in with a cup of tea. He's in between. It was 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. And the Rebbe had a cold. He was coughing. And, and it couldn't speak properly. And so he came in with a cup of tea. Right? And we said, well, what would a normal person say to that? Thank you. That's wonderful. That's great. And what would the Rebbe say? Are you crazy? These people are waiting for hours and hours and hours. And you want me to make them wait for another 2 minutes? Now, that's not normal. That's just beyond, it's beyond the human response spectrum. I would never expect, there's different levels. You say, okay, later, later, half an hour, right? Whatever. There's different responses, but not like, how dare you even consider it? that I would take a cup of tea, even though I'm not feeling well, yes. But what's more important, am I not feeling well, or these people waiting for hours and hours and hours? These ordinary, simple people waiting to speak to me. Yeah. So sometimes the response of a tzaddik is totally different realm. And I think this is, in a sense, it brings it home here. Moshe Rabbeinu was so, as I say, horrified. He was horrified about this possibility of serving as an excuse that Hashem could say, well, okay, we'll get rid of the Jews, quote unquote, thanks to your existence. That really bothered him. Anyway, we should all realize we all have a little bit of Moshe within us, and we all have that great humility within us, and we should all merit the salvation, just as Moshe saved the Jewish people with his prayers, so too Mashiach should come and save the Jewish people from all the sorrows that we have right now. And speedily in the times before Purim, well before Purim, hopefully even before Rosh Chodesh, or even before Shabbos and Baruch, it's not even Shabbos and Baruch, we've got no week to Shabbos and Baruch. And we'll see you all next time in Yitzhak Hashem. Thank you for all coming.
Thank you.
All the best.
Goya, thank you.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Good Shabbos.
Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Good Shabbat.
Shabbat shalom.